Today I'm going to review this Kreg Benchtop router table. Not only am I going to review the function of the router table, I'm going to review the assembly of the router table, which is something that I have not seen on YouTube. This is not a sponsored video. Kreg didn't give me anything. I bought this with my own money, and you're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there's some stuff I'm not happy with here, and there's some stuff I am. Let's dig into this. Hi everybody, I'm Jim Dierdorf and this is Detroit DIY. Let's get started. I watched a lot of videos on router tables to try and select one that had the most features, the things that I would really want in a router table. And this one fit the bill for that. So its functionality is good. I hope that I'll get many years of service out of it and that I'll enjoy using it. So we're going to go over some of its functionality here shortly and point that out to you. The assembly of this router table took me about 2 hours and 45 minutes, something like that. I put a video on YouTube last week of assembling this table. With all the editing, I got it down to like 1:45. It's a long watch. If you're going to buy a Kreg router table, I highly suggest you watch that video. In fact, I don't even think Kreg should call this a router table. I think they should call it a router table kit. With the amount of assembly that's required here, you having to drill the insert plate. I'll throw in a little clip from last week's video right now of me drilling that out. Alright, there we go. Got our 3 holes in it. I'm going to just take them over and make sure that they line up the way I want them to, and then we'll come back and we will get the countersinks in them. It's just, man, there was a lot to it. And there wasn't really that much of anything pre-assembled. There was nothing pre-assembled. It was all for you. The insert plate, they did put some nice layout marks on the back of it. I'll throw up a picture of that and how you lay out your base plate on here. They do put 2 different center punch marks on here for 2 different style routers. My router would not work with either one of those. So I had some problems with my base plate. I worked through it. I got it all taken care of. But that just took even a little extra time. So yes, if I wouldn't have, I had this Ryobi router just kicking around, and it's going to live the rest of its life right here in this bench until it dies. And then if I need to, I'll re-drill this insert plate, or I'll buy a new one and drill it that way, or get it already pre-drilled. One way or the other, it wouldn't matter. So at any rate, let's get into it. The instructions for putting this together were good as far as the steps and what to do. What wasn't good was the fact that it tells you to use this screw here and this screw here in the instructions, and it gives you a reference number of, let's say, 18. And you go to 18, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't a number next to it. I'll put up a picture of that page in the book. So then you go to your packets of hardware, and none of them are really labeled the same as what's in the book. So I don't know why they couldn't take 5 minutes and just throw, packet 1, packet 2, packet 3, and put that in their book instead of what they have here. I shouldn't have to go through and count screws, and there were 3 metric screws to hold this track in right here. This it's not a T-track, it's just a miter slot. So to hold this in, and there are 3 metric labeled screws, and they were in with this start pin, but there was no markings on that bag that was anything like what's in the book. So it was just kind of a guess. It's the only screws that there's 3 of. So that's how I had to figure out what screws held this in place. I was not very happy with that and how they laid it out. I could have put this together a lot faster had they actually labeled it out, instead of me having to lay everything out and go, okay, I have 3 of these screws, I have 4 of these, I have 16 of these, and match it up by the numbers in the book of the amount of screws that it says I should have. They did put the length and size of some of the screws on the bags, which helped out in getting them where they need to go, but otherwise it was kind of a little bit of a nightmare when it came to the hardware. I wasn't happy about that at all. So we'll just go through what I'm not happy about, and then we'll go from there. When it comes to the fence, let me show you what we got going on here. The fence itself, I'm pretty happy with. But as you can see, we have a Phillips head screw on this side of the fence and a thumb nut on this side. Well, when you go to tighten the thumb nut, the Phillips head screw just rotates. It finally grabbed right there and tightened up. Before I started this video, I turned that probably 10 times and it wouldn't tighten up. So in some cases they'll tighten, and in some they won't. The next thing that I wasn't very happy about was this tape measure on top. Now in the very beginning I wasn't sure what this would even be used for, but there's a T-track in here, and you can get, Kreg sells some stops that you can put in here for, per se, routering a dado or something like that, and you want it not to be exposed on the outside edges of your wood so that you can set stops up, and that is what this is for. Well, the instructions tell you to mark out the center and lay out 0, and that's what I did. And I was off by like a 1/16 of an inch from my pencil mark. This thing is 24 inches. I wish the instructions would have just said start at 12 on one end, and 0 is going to lay out perfect and everything's going to lay out perfect. That's not how the instructions were worded. This could have been so much simpler to put this on and so much more accurate had they just said start at 12 at the end. If you have a 24-inch fence, they may have other length fences, but that's just a much simpler way of putting it on that would probably wind up way more accurate than mine. So I haven't looked to see if I can get a new one of these. I'm not so worried about it. I hope someone from Kreg actually watches this video, because some of this hardware stuff and this is a little bit of a nightmare. I would feel for someone that puts this together. The fence locks in place with these units right here. I don't know exactly what you would call them. They work pretty good. I like them. But the instructions aren't clear on how to adjust these. It's just something you kind of have to play with and figure out on your own to get them to pull tight, without getting them to pull so tight that you break them. So one of mine still needs to be just snugged up a little bit more before it's lock it into place good. I think after I've locked it into place 2 or 3 times now, it's already kind of loosened up a little bit. The fence does have some decent dust collection on it. I've used the dust collection and I like it. I think it's pretty good. I think with any router table you're going to have some dust. There's nothing you can do about it that's coming out the front, because well, without the fence you don't have any dust collection, but with the fence you do, and it just depends on how far you spread the fence apart as to how wide your bit is and how much clearance you need in here as to how much you're going to have leaving as opposed to getting sucked up. The rest of the router table I was pretty happy with. It all went together easy. It does have a melamine top on it. I'm assuming it's melamine, and it is on a particle board, a OSB board of the sorts. I don't think it's oriented strand board. You can only see it where it's cut out for the fence notches and for the insert plate, so I'm not positive if it's just a particle board or OSB board. My tabletop or my insert plate appeared to be warped about a 1/16 of an inch, It's not the end of the world for me. I'll get over that. And then there's just one more thing that I'm not real happy with, and I'm going to share that with you, and then we'll get on to the stuff why I bought this table and why I think this is actually going to wind up to be a good router table. In all of the videos that I watched, no one talked about the height of this router table. Well, I'm going to talk about it because this thing's too tall. My router has got 6.5 inches of clearance right there, and there's plenty of room. This router, for a benchtop router table, this is too tall. This work platform that I use right here is the same height as every bench that I have. I'm 6'1". I'm a little bit of a taller guy. My benches are all right at 37 inches, 37.5 inches, something like that. This is the Ryobi table that I've been working with. As you can see, this is a huge upgrade from what I had. But this Ryobi table is just a little over a foot tall. This Kreg table is 16 inches tall. And so the end result is, I can't use this table like this. It's just too tall. This one, I could use this. I didn't even mind the height of this Ryobi table. It was the tabletop, it was the fence. This thing's basically, you know, junk. It's what got me through the little bit that I've used router table in the past, and I'm going to be stepping that up greatly, so that was the reason for this purchase. But it's too tall, so now I'm going to have to build some sort of a table in my already small shop to accommodate this, to get it to a height that makes sense for me. So that's one of the downsides of this. I'll figure out something for a fold-up table or something like that to get that taken care of. So now let's talk about some of the features of this router table and what I actually like about it, and why I selected it to put in my shop. I do like the fact that it has this miter slot in here. I do wish this was a T-track so that I could run, so that what I was running through here could kind of sort of lock into place. This is going to be a good guide for anything that I want to use through it, whether I make a little sled or whatever I choose to run in here. This is going to make a good guide for that, and I'm glad that I have it. So I really like this feature. The Ryobi table also had the miter slot in the front of it, but of course the tabletop was so small. And that's another thing that I really like about this Kreg Benchtop router table, is we're looking at a tabletop that's 24 inches by 16 inches, roughly a little under 16, but it's a decent sized tabletop for a benchtop router. I really like that. I like the fact that we have this removable insert plate. Now this insert is, like I said in the very beginning, the one you get with this router table is not drilled. So Kreg does have drilled inserts that you can purchase that are already pre-drilled for different routers. However, you need to know exactly what router you're putting in and what hole pattern you have, and it will not come with your router table. You're going to get a blank insert with your router table. The reducing rings that are here, these are the different reducing rings. Now I had to buy these separately. They give you, I think, 2 of them if I remember right, with the router table. And that's all they give you. So if you want the other reducing rings, you have that as a separate purchase. They do give you the tool for the reducing rings, and it's you know, fairly simple. They just pop right in and they pop right out, and there you have it. So they do lock into place very nicely. I like that about them. So a lot of this insert plate, even though it was aggravating for me to get the holes in it, was part of what I was excited about the most in the beginning with getting this router table in the first place. Also, we'll take a look in a second, but the external switch does not come with the router table. It is also a separate purchase. We have here the blade guard, or the bit guard, which I like it. I'm going to obviously use it. I'm hopeful that it doesn't hinder vision. As you can see, this is way too tall to try and use. This is above my chest, so I'm definitely going to have to build a different table for this to sit on. So this is adjustable. It's got a nice little T-track right here in the front of the fence. It's got a couple of elevator bolts and some spacers. They'll hold it on here. Now, I like this and will use it. Probably one of the things that excited me the most about this fence is the fact that this router will do jointing and this fence is set up for it. So let me show you that real quick. The construction of this router table, the metal, this router table is actually made in the USA. I really like that about it too. But stored away in the fence right here, we have these little rods, and these are used for jointing. And on both sides of each fence section, which you're typically, since you're going to be feeding your material through the router in this direction or towards the camera, you would want to use those rods on this side of the fence. So I'm not sure why they did that on both sides. But you loosen this side of the fence up, and then you can take these rods and you can slide them in here. And what that does is it bumps this side of the fence out 1/16 or 1/32 of an inch. So two of these notches are inset further into the fence. That would also be for the 1/32, and these would be for the 1/16. To try and remove a 1/16 of an inch when you're jointing something in a router is a big swing. So I believe that the 1/32 is something that I would use the most, and who knows, maybe I'll pull out and try the 1/16. But if you bump the two fence pieces together, it kicks this one out that little bit, so that you bring your router bit out flush with this fence using a flush trim bit, and then when you run your board through it, this fence supports the piece that you're pushing through. This one supports the piece that's already been routed off. So, which is nice because you can joint some decent sized pieces of wood. I'm thinking probably 36-40 inches you could run through here with accuracy and get a nice joint on them, which is good. That this is an easy way to joint a board. And of course too, the bigger bite you try to take when you're jointing like that, the more chatter you may get on the surface of the board. So the lighter you go, like I say, the 32nd as opposed to the 16th, as the lighter run through, you will probably get a better result. And of course you would want to get a down spiral bit. I would believe a down spiral bit would work the best for doing jointing like that. What I don't like is this rod kind of disappears in there, and you can't get it out. If they would have made these a little bit longer, so now what I have to do is take this side of the fence completely off to get that rod out of there. No, it's not the end of the world, but if these things would have been, you know, another inch longer or so, or just make sure you leave them protrude out a little bit instead of let them get all the way in there like I just did. This is the power switch that I was referring to, and this has two outlets on the back of it. So this router is plugged into one of them, and then my vacuum would be plugged into the other one, so that when I turn the switch on, my vacuum turns on and my router turns on. I've got everything at one switch. This is not included with the router table. It was an additional $39. I can't remember exactly what the additional reducing rings were. But that was not part of the router table. I kind of wish it was. I mean, I don't see, you know, raise the price of your router table $45 or $50 or whatever and include this stuff in it. So I don't know why it wasn't included, but it's not. Alright guys, one last thing I want to talk about here, and that's this fence. The fence lifts off very nicely. The way that it latches into place can be, as you can see, this one won't advance. So you kind of have to reach under here and turn it into the correct position so that it will. And the reason for that is that these are narrow on one side and wide on the other. So that narrow part has to slide through the track, and of course when you put it in, if it bumps around, then they're just like quarter turns and they lock into place, and they lock in good. I really like how much they lock in. I can't move that fence, so I really like how they lock in. But they are a little cumbersome sometimes when you take them out, when you take the fence off and you set it back on, trying to get it locked into place. I will probably do another video in like a year or so and let you know how this top is holding up. I'm really curious about that and how it's going to hold up. Hopefully it holds up just fine, because I got a lot of stuff I want to do with this. I'm going to put a link down in the description for everything we talked about today. If you'd like to get your own router table kit, it'll be down there. Like I say, I hope that the end result, even though it was a little aggravating putting it together, I hope that it meets all of my expectations, and I'm pretty sure it will. Time will tell. Just a little frustrating to put together, mostly because of the hardware. Other than that, you know, I wish that, you know, my router base was basically my problem with getting these holes drilled. And I didn't have the countersink bits that I needed either. I had to go buy some countersink bits. So it was no big deal at the end. I just really hope that it gives me good years of service. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you use those links in the description, I will make a small commission. However, it won't cost you any extra. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider doing so. If you enjoyed yourself, click on one of those two videos that are going to pop up below me. And remember to always respect the power of your power tools. We'll see you soon.